Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever or whoever you may be. I am Alan Arante, and this is the Recluse podcast. Today's guest is Jessica Kimball, known to everyone as J. Lynn. She is an artist, a musician, a poet, and an activist. She works with organizations like Black American Political Association of California and the Community Advocacy Coalition. In this conversation, Lynn and we talk about the time she spent in Portugal as a teenager, the events she works on, such as the Harmony Art Walk in Oxnard and the various open mic nights. We also discuss the current social climate. J. Lynn offers some of the right reasons to protest and join the movement, and some of the wrong reasons. So without further delay, this is a portrait of J. Lynn.
I guess you can say, first and foremost, I am an artist. I moved out to the 805 area the end of 2012, and I kind of hit the ground running. I started going to school out here at Oxnard College, and I got involved with this group, sociology group. And from there, I started learning different connections and nonprofit organizations. And that's kind of how I was born out here as an artist.
Wow. Where did you come from?
Oh, so I actually moved out here from the Coachella Valley area, Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage area.
What kind of place is that? I'm not that familiar. I assume that's where Coachella is, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely a desert. That's actually where a lot of my music was born. I was around a lot of musicians and artists, and that's actually where I learned a lot of my artistry at. But I wasn't necessarily out there with my music, so it was more internal, and I was kind of figuring things out. And then I moved to Oxnard, and it just kind of like exploded.
So what was it about Oxnard? Was it social media connections? I just don't know that many people whose destination is Oxnard. As wonderful as it is, what made it the destination for you?
Okay, so my dad moved out to Oxnard. He was working out in the desert. That's how I was out in the desert. I stayed out in the desert because I was in a relationship and it became toxic. I had to leave, and I came out here because my parents were out here.
And I know this is a question you're never supposed to ask a woman, but what year were you born?
88. I'm the 88 baby.
Okay. I'm 89, but barely. I'm December 89.
Oh, okay.
So you said that your music was sort of born out there. Were you a musician while you lived out in Palm Desert? Or actually, I guess my real question is, when did you start music?
Wow, I started, so I guess it goes way, way, way back. I remember when I was a baby or like a toddler seeing a red guitar, and I would always try to like walk towards it. But somebody would snatch me up real quick. And then I remember in high school, I used to daydream a lot and listen to music, and I would imagine that I was that artist. But I never thought I would be an artist. And as time went, I started going through changes from being a teenager into like my womanhood, and I started writing poetry. And that's how I got involved. I want to say around 2007. And I started writing a lot.
And you would have been like a senior in high school or a junior, something like that?
Actually, I graduated early. I graduated a year early. I graduated in 2005 instead of 2006. So in 2007, I was already out of high school and trying to figure life out.
How did you finish early? Did you do like directed studies or something like that?
Actually, I was living in Portugal. I was living on this island called the Azores.
What?
And
wow.
Yeah, it's right off of the coast of Portugal, off of the mainland.
Wait, so you were going to high school in Portugal?
Yes, I was going to high school in Portugal.
And you speak Portuguese?
I do not speak Portuguese, no.
Did they teach in English or what?
Yes, they did teach in English because the base that we were on an Air Force base.
Oh, okay.
Lodges Air Force Base on the island Terceira. And so, I mean, they did teach Portuguese, though.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. So if you could tell me what year, or not what year necessarily, but, from what age to what age were you in Portugal?
I was in Portugal from the age 16 to 18.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Bring me back to that time. What were you going through? You sort of did a little bit with the music and the poetry and stuff, or you were becoming a woman. Yeah, take me back to those years. What was it like being there?
Those years, and I have to make a correction. It was actually, I was 15 going into 16, so we ended up there around Christmas time, like towards the end of Christmas time, and I actually turned 16, I think 15, 16 when I was out there. Man, I just remembered I hated it when I first got out there, because I was used to going to the mall and the radio and, watching TV. And now I was in this place where our television only had 2 channels. There was no radio station that played hip hop, I was in this foreign place and I had to relearn everything. And then when you look around the island, all you see is water. So the island's not big. It only takes an hour and a half just to drive around the entire island. It was not big at all. And after about a year, I actually started making friends, Portuguese friends, and the legal drinking age in Portugal is 16.
Did you take advantage of that?
Of course I took advantage of that. They let you into the bars at that age. So I had the pleasure of really getting out there, going to bars, going to different restaurants. And the crazy thing about Portugal that I love and that I miss is they have these festivals, and the festivals start in May and they end in October.
Wow. And
they have a festival in every single cities with bullfights, parades, bomb food. That by the time I left, I was crying in tears. I didn't want to leave.
Wow.
I learned a lot of my art there. I was painting a lot when I lived out there, and I was also writing a lot of poetry there too.
So you first land there when you're 15, turning 16. Wasn't that traumatic almost to be ripped away from, you were in the States, right? When before 15?
Of course. I was traumatized.
I mean, you're just yanked from everything It's, you're moving somewhere where it's almost like you're going to Mars or something. It's a different country, a different language. People look different, I would imagine. Just everything's different. Well, actually, your school was on the base. Is that what you said?
The school was not on the base. The school was actually off of the base. Even the base housing was off of the base.
Oh, okay.
But it was an English-speaking school.
And the people that were in your classes, were they also military kids?
All military kids. There was no Portuguese kids. So we weren't actually going to school with Portuguese kids. There were some Portuguese kids in our class that did go to the school, but it was only because their parents were somehow military but American and happened to be Portuguese.
Yeah. My goodness. Did you have any love interests out there?
Love interest. I just had my high school sweetheart, and that was about it. And, we parted ways, and he's living his full life, and I am living mine.
Wow. You sort of described something a little earlier. You said you listened to music in high school and you started doing poetry, and you imagined yourself being an artist. Do you feel like that high school dream you had of yourself is realized at this point in your life?
I believe that definitely the power of the law of attraction was definitely put into play.
What do you mean by that?
So I didn't even realize it at that time, but I subconsciously created my reality of where I'm at now. And I did it a lot. I would daydream every day and, started actually doing it. And we don't realize that the more we tell our brain something, or the more that we see things and we visualize it, that we will actually attract it into our life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so true. I was just talking to somebody about that, about how our patterns of self-talk, how they influence our behavior and basically they just change our trajectory. We were talking about how if every day you tell yourself you're ugly, oh, I'm ugly, I'm never going to be good enough, and all of those things, you manifest that energy into reality.
Mm-hmm. You definitely do.
So the opposite, what you're describing, is also true. If you're daydreaming about something and you're just thinking about it every day, it's more likely to manifest that way. So you mentioned something interesting. You said you went to Oxnard College out here. And was it at Oxnard College, or was it just during that time when you met those people who were, for lack of better words, a sociology-oriented group? You met them at Oxnard?
I met them at Oxnard College. It's actually a branch of the Oxnard. It's a club, a sociology club at Oxnard College. And I was taking sociology classes as well. And just really quick, there's a funny little story of how this kind of happened. I was taking a class called Analyzing Social Welfare, and we had to go find a nonprofit group to go study. And so I was telling somebody about my classes when I first started the semester, and they somehow got me contact information for an organization. They asked me for my email address, and then I received an email from this organization called CAC and BAPAC. I met with the leaders or the founders of this organization, or the organizers, Byron Ward and Don Montgomery. And ever since then, I've always worked with them. Now, I ended up dropping this class, but the funny part is I was still with this organization. And from this organization, these two organizations, they're sister organizations, they gave me the platform to organize bi-monthly open mic nights. They gave me the platform to organize the Oxnard Art Walk, that we have every year at Juneteenth. It's the Harmony Art Walk.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And are you still with these groups?
Of course. I mean, I associate with the groups. I'm in these groups. I still organize the art walk. Due to COVID, we decided that Juneteenth is going to be canceled. So there's not going to be an art walk, and it was going to be June 20th.
Is it just delayed, or it's just simply not being done this year
I don't think it's going to be done this year. And, right now with our social climate, because these groups are actually, BAPAC stands for Black American Political Association of California. And then CAC, Community Advocacy Coalition, they have different branches, but they are a social justice group, that I was working with. We would organize bi-monthly open mic nights. They actually have a radio station now. It's 99.3 Rhythm of the Coast. And their call numbers are KJBU. They're on the dial now, and we are always looking for content, but that's how I got involved with a lot of the community activism that I was doing out here. I was working with them, and I was also working with a group called STAC, Save the Art Culture. And that's actually what really got me diving into community activism out here in Oxnard.
So do you think that your participation in activism and these groups and events, is it just happenstance because you happen to meet these people, or were you always sort of socially oriented, even during high school? Or did you observe things when you were younger, even before becoming a part of these groups?
That's a good question. I can't say I was really like social in high school. I mean, of course we're social in high school, but I wasn't like the popular kid, you know. I was actually the kid that all the popular kids didn't like. I was always like the outcast of, you know, and the ugly duckling, so to speak.
Really? What do you mean by that?
I was very overweight when I was younger. I guess you can say I wasn't really aware of my body or how I looked until like later. So I didn't really care about those things. I was more interested with the things that were going on outside of me than I was about myself. But as life went on, I lost some weight, and then I like completely became like a different person, but like physically and mentally. I think what got me started in these groups was the fact that I had a platform to express myself artistically.
And before that, you didn't have a platform. Were you just doing things just for your own eyes, for your own ears?
Yes, actually.
So what did that change mean then? All of a sudden you have a platform where other people are starting to see what you're about. What did that change about you? Did that change the way you viewed yourself and how you acted in the world?
Of course, because I went from being Jessica Kimball to Lynn. That if you even said Jessica to somebody, they'd be like, who? Who? You know?
Yeah.
And people, I would be with my parents, and my parents would be like, hey, Jessica. And they're looking at my parents like, what? Or I'm out with my parents, you know, and everybody's like, Lynn. And everybody's like, you know, my parents are like, what? Who? No, you got the wrong person. They're like, no, Lynn. And I'm like, oh, that's me, you know, like,
yeah.
But did that change? Yes, because I was just telling somebody this, earlier today. I was having this conversation that, before my music got out there, I was just worried about my music and my love for my music. I loved creating and I enjoyed every moment of it. I would just focus on creating. I didn't think that people would listen to my music, but then when my music got out there, yeah, it changed me because now I have to socialize. You know, before I didn't have to socialize because I just lock myself in my room and create. But now I was having to, okay, I have a show. I have to go get ready for the show. And I think it I started realizing a lot of my insecurities, you know, with like my body and how I looked, because now I'm trying to like compare myself to other artists, I noticed. And
wow.
Not just that, you start attracting different people to you that they're not really there for you. They're just there because you have limelight, or they want limelight, and
kidding,
for the wrong things.
What would tell you that? Like, what would tell you that about a person? Like, would you get that feeling while the person was in your presence? Like they, I don't know, wanted just a piece of the limelight, or you seemed to be somebody to them, so they wanted to gravitate towards you. Is that just like a vibe you would get from people?
I would see it with how people act. I mean, you see it in people's actions. You know when people are there genuinely, and I'll say this like this. You see a person's purpose. And when you see that person enacting their purpose, like, you know, somebody is passionate about something, like passionate about the community, you see the work that they put behind it, that they're not doing this for limelight. They're doing this because they believe in something. And then you have people that they're just doing it because they want attention. You know, they're not really doing anything out in the community. They're not really trying to put any good. They just want attention, and they want, like, it becomes like a popularity contest to them.
Yeah. And so basically it's sort of that old adage or adage, what is it? Basically real sees real. So, and real sees fake. Yeah. So you mentioned these open mics. Do they still go? Well, I don't know about right now, but in recent years, have they still been going on?
Yes, actually, the last one that we had was December. We had an open mic toy drive.
And was that in town? Was that in Ventura or Oxnard?
That was in Oxnard at the Salvation Army off of Woolley. We had a really good time. We've raised a lot of gifts and money and toys for 126 kids. And
Wow.
What was unique about this, and that was the first time that we've organized something like that. So, that may seem like a small number, but to us, since it was our first time, it was like, oh my gosh, we have like 126 kids that we got to come through for.
Yeah.
That's a lot of kids to get toys for,
Well, how did that list get made? I mean, where do you get these names, or how do you know there's 126 of them?
So we were working with this lady whose name I'm not going to say because I don't know if, how comfortable she feels.
Right.
But she works with women and children, specifically, women that, are struggling, that is single. They don't really have the financial support, and that's how we got the kids. So she was able to find the families, because she has these families that she helps already. We told her what the idea was. And, from there, it was just, let's get the toys. But we realized that a lot of the families, the kids were, there was some kids that were 13 to 17,
Wow.
And I know that with the Toys for Tots program, I think they only do toys for kids that are 0 to 12. They stop at a certain age bracket, and we were actually able to go in there and serve the kids that were 13 to 17.
Wow. Yeah, so you can get them toys that are more age appropriate.
Yeah, and so we were able to do that because the Salvation Army only provides for one set of kids, but it's but how about these teens that actually need it? They are in a serious development too.
Right.
They're going to be going from teenagers into adults. Their development is very important. So, I'm glad that we are able to open that door for that age bracket. That's a very important age bracket.
So what are your motivations for doing this work?
I have a niece. She is going to be 7 this year, and I've always loved kids. I've just always had this passion for helping kids. I think it's because I see the joy in their face when they're creating art, or they're doing something that they created, or they finally get to make a mess because their parents don't like them to paint and they can paint around Tia Jutta.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of what's going on right now, I mean, what are your thoughts? Is this, it sounds like you've been into activism for years now. Is this just the same old story over again that we've heard, year after year, or does this seem like a different time in history to you?
This is definitely a different time in history. And, a lot of times when it comes to political stances like this, I tend to stand back and I observe, because I participate in different ways where I'm trying to enrich the community. So I try to tread very carefully, but it's definitely a different time, and there's a lot of rage right now. And it's time for this to happen. This is what is going to unfold, and this is what's going to help elevate us as a race. And I mean the human race. It's going to elevate our consciousness. And this is a very great time I want to be proactive peacefully. And so right now we're in 2020, and it's I don't know how many years later, this is a whole nother where people are coming together, and the people that need to come together are coming together, and they're separating. And I'm seeing this separation and this division amongst people because of this.
I sort of fear, I wonder, I totally get like why we're out there in the streets, even if it's as simple as just trying to make things more equal for people of color. That's good enough for me. I just wonder, even if we could accomplish that, are we still just trying to aim for a status quo and still be basically in one way or another slaves to this rotten system? So even if we can achieve what we want to in terms of like race equality, I still wonder, are we still operating within a messed up system?
Well, yes, we are operating from a messed up system. And I tried to push that, a lot of history books will teach you that Black history starts with slavery out here in the U.S., and it doesn't. That's not where Black history starts. Black history starts all the way in Africa. And if you actually go and you dive into the true history of Africa, Africa was one of the richest continents. And when I say rich, I'm not talking about material wealth. Although, yes, rich in material wealth as well, but they were rich in their education. They were rich in their economic system, in science, math, knowledge. They had a lot of wisdom. They knew how space worked. They probably had technology that's way more than advanced than what we will ever experience in this day and age. So the cell phone is probably out of whack. They probably were able to control, the air with their fingertips.
Yeah.
But England and Europe, a lot of the European countries, they saw how powerful, and they saw that, and they came and they looted, they raped and pillaged, brought slaves over here, and they caused a separation of man from his own land. And where he was living, freely with no rules, and put him somewhere where now they have to abide by these rules. But these rules are put there to keep them in place so they can't prosper. Like a lot of the museums that we go to, we see all these ancient African artifacts that were stolen, and now we're paying to go see these artifacts that came from land that was, they stole from our land.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's all so rotten. I do feel hopeful, I have to say, with how much awareness is going on right now. Everybody is talking about what's going on. Everybody cares, as far as I can tell. It seems to be the minority. Maybe it's just the people that I follow on social media and the people that I associate with to begin with. And maybe that's why I'm not seeing, let's say, I don't know, for lack of better words, people protesting on behalf of white people. I'm not seeing that on my social media pages or out in the streets at this time. And I really feel like we can move the needle in the right direction with this movement.
We absolutely can. I absolutely agree with you, but this movement is, it's deeper than just protesting. And I want to say shout out to, C minor, Curtis, or he goes by, Acro. He made a very valid point that, if we want to see healing, not only do we need to protest, or we really need to be mindful of what we eat. We need to be mindful of our health. We need to be mindful of what we're feeding, not only our body, but what we're feeding our mind, what we're feeding our brain, what we're watching, what we're listening to. And that right there is what is going to change us as a race. And so I have to watch myself too, because I am outraged, but at the same time, I believe peace is very important in the development of us as a race and coming together. I wouldn't want this to, be what Black history is. I want Black history to be something that is healthy, something that where we actually evolved as a human and we have more freedom. I want Black history to represent something else. I don't want Black history to be police brutality. Fuck
Right.
No, that's not what my Black history is. My Black history should be of enrichment and, having generational wealth.
Right.
Creating Black businesses and owning a whole block and supporting Black businesses, not just Black businesses, but, businesses in general. But really supporting each other and really integrating each race and culture and respecting each other's cultures.
Yeah. I think a big thing is that to understand something, I feel like you have to engage with it. So for instance, if I don't know anything about music, well, how can I learn more about music? I pick up an instrument. I talk to somebody who knows about music. We jam and I spend time. I feel like people aren't always willing to make that leap. For instance, I don't know, I'm making a generalization here. Let's say a particular white person's, racism, their subtle racism comes from they're for some reason afraid of Black people and they never engage with the Black community. Well, they're probably going to live a life in fear and not engage somebody that's different than them. And so I think a really important part is to actually engage with the thing that you don't understand and you try your best to understand it as best as you can.
Absolutely. You do have to do your best to understand. So I mean, that is a very valid point. You have to kind of put yourself in that situation, try to put yourself in those shoes, or be around that situation. Like you said, like you would, if you want to learn more about music, you have to pick up that instrument.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like, what am I trying to say? What is the understanding that you're trying to gain? What is the purpose that you're trying to gain out of it? What are you getting out of it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good question to ask. That I've heard that why is a very important question. For instance, I was talking to a high school teacher. He's always asking himself why he does certain things. So for instance, if he wants his kids to come into the classroom quietly, read the board, pull out the book that it says or whatever, go to page 95, whatever, what have you, he wants to always have a reason why. And a lot of teachers, they'll just tell you to do something and not have a good reason why. So I think that's a great point that you bring up about why are you trying to understand something? What's the purpose of you picking up that instrument to understand music more?
Because if you don't understand that, then you're kind of going through emotion, and so like, what is urging you? Like, is it, a passion that you have? Is it a curiosity? Is it going to just be something that is, a trend? And that's why we have to ask those questions, because it's like, are you really down with the movement?
Yeah.
Because you could some people will be like, oh, I want to learn the guitar. And then they try to pick it up and then they just kind of leave it there and then they don't pick it up ever again.
Yeah. It's not what they thought it would be.
Yeah. There's a struggle there. Even with learning an instrument, you're going to have to deal with the impatientness of like, it's not as easy to learn. You're not going to just pick it up and just start playing it, so you have to spend time with it.
Like, for instance, with this movement and with the current social climate, can you imagine bad reasons to want to engage in the protests or to try to understand things that people don't understand. So yeah, can you think of things that wrong reasons for trying to join this movement? Is there such a thing?
Yes, absolutely. There's absolutely wrong things to try to join the movement. For one, sometimes people feel the need that, oh my gosh, I just want to fit in. This is the cool thing to do. It's a trend. Everybody protest. Everybody's doing it. It's like, no, that's not why you protest. Or sometimes there are people, and, again, I want to be very careful about this, but they want to jump on something because they, I think, have a guilt. And, now they're jumping in because now they want to ease that guilt, if that makes any sense. Like, oh, wow. I'm not racist. I am not racist. Look, I am here with black people. You know what I mean? I'm protesting. You see me out in these streets, you know what I'm saying? But then, like, there's those people too. And then you also have the people that are like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time for people to notice me and to look, I was out in these streets, It's not about you. It's about the purpose. We're coming together as a people, and people will try to use it for their own clout.
Yeah. That's just, that is so strange. That's another strange thing. I'm noticing people post about themselves being on, at the protest. And I don't know what to think about it one way or another in the cases that I've seen, because it seems like it comes from a good place in their heart. They're trying to gain awareness or make people aware of what's going on. But that's an interesting point, that people may be not volunteering, but people may be asserting themselves into this movement for clout or attention or to ease guilt. That is just such an interesting point. What are the what would you call the right reasons to participate and to make this their calling, or their to make this something they do?
So I will say it like this. I'll start it off by telling you the reason why I am, even participating in any of this. Like I said, normally I'd like to sit out on these things, but it's being spoken up about so much that even at my job, I feel tension.
Wow.
People are bringing it up, and then I have those people that I don't know if they have that guilt, but because I'm black, now they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, and it's like, this is crazy, and then I have people that I don't agree with the looting, and like, now we're not talking, and it's so stupid because because we're so passionate, but I feel like there's a lack of understanding. And so, the right reasons is that, not only that you're passionate about it, but that there's something wrong. And we work better in numbers. So if you're coming together in numbers to try to make a difference, to try to bring more peace into the community, to bring the attention out, to call people out of their negativity, to call police out on police brutality, so we can make a change, then yes, that's all for the right reasons, Or let's say I was just talking to a girl earlier, and she was talking about, she has her nephew right now, and she was like, I'm already seeing him being treated different, I never thought about protesting before, but we went to the store and they were messing with us. And I feel like he's an innocent kid. He's not even grown up yet. And they're already treating him like he's a criminal. And, like, to hear that, it brought tears to my eyes. And those are the reasons why I do this, because it helps us to come together and to really cope as a community, because right now with everything that's going on and the climate that we're in, it's becoming to where if you're even, considered anti-fascist by somebody, you're automatically considered a terrorist and you're automatically stripped of your rights. So we're in a place, in a social climate where it's scary for Black people, because you could be Black and automatically they're going to say, oh my God, this person is anti-fascist. Or you could post something on social media and they're going to be like, this person's anti-fascist and this person's a terrorist. Shoot them on sight, and that's a scary climate to be in, because I don't hope that anything like that happens. I feel like we can transcend that negativity. But that is the kind of climate that, young Black boys, they grow up in. My brother, when we moved out to Oxnard, he had a really bad, experience where somebody held a gun to his head, and it was a Mexican guy, and he held a gun to my brother's head, and robbed him. But luckily my brother is alive, and to hear that story is like, that's my brother, My brother after that, he didn't want to leave the house. He was scared for his life, because if it wasn't like somebody putting a gun to his head, it was the police that were harassing him and pulling him over just because he was Black. My brother feared for his life. He's like, if I leave the house, I'm either going to get locked up. Like, even if I'm not doing anything wrong, I could be on my way to work, they're automatically going to think I'm a criminal. And, it's those things that really make me like fight and come together, because these are things that we do have to deal with.
Yeah. It's just, enough. It's like, enough is enough. I don't know what's in my power. I don't know, like, the ways I can actually create change. I'm trying, and all I know is that, like, enough is enough. Like, and it's that there's this phrase going around, like, I'm Mexican. I'm not a Black person, so I can't, tell you what it feels like, the way you can tell me. But there's this phrase going around, like, I can't, it goes, I can't ever understand, but I stand with you. And that's just like how I feel right now. Like, anything I can do to stand with my Black brothers and sisters, I want to do. I just can't sit this one out and wait till it blows over.
Absolutely. And I feel, and I'm a big advocate on, Black and brown unity. Black and brown unity is very important. I feel like there is I don't want to say there's a separation among us, but there was at one point people, I don't want to say the government tried to separate us, by throwing us breadcrumbs and we fight over them.
Mm-hmm.
We have to come together as a people, because you guys have similar struggles too. I know you're like, I don't know what you're going through as a person, but you guys get fucked with too. You guys definitely get fucked with too, so we do have to stand together. And I know people may not see it, but you guys, Mexican people sometimes you guys can't walk down the street in a group, or you guys are going to be considered a gang. If it's like one or more of you, they'll be like, oh, they said, gang injunctions in certain places where the majority of the minority are, Hispanics, they're Mexican. And so that right there should tell you, like, damn, they created a gang injunction because of us, you guys get treated differently too. And so we definitely have to learn how to stand together. And I have to tell this to my Black brothers and sisters, like, we have to stand with our brown brothers and sisters. We absolutely have to. You guys have to put that aside. Whatever pride you guys have, If you guys had a trauma because, a bad experience with somebody that was Mexican, like, you had to put that to the side, because not everybody's like that. Vice versa, our brown brothers, you have to trust us, our brown sisters, you guys have to trust us, and we have to really come together, and we have to push through this, Trump's trying to build a wall so you guys don't come into here, and it's like, what kind of shit is that? This is your guys' land just as much as it is ours. I think the most important thing, in this scary time is to really get a hold of peace. And I know that sounds like cliche and totally the hippie movement, but, I think a lot of this race war and a lot of the injustice, where it's actually stemming from, is from emotions, and it could be emotions. It could be jealousy. I'm not trying to sound all big and bad, but, a lot of these people can be jealous of a race or what we have, or, they can literally have an emotion, but we have to learn how to remove those emotions, because if not, people can control you with your emotions. And so, but I also know that a lot of this is all emotionally triggered, and a lot of the protesting is happening because people are pissed off and they're outraged. But I feel like if we can come to peace, that we will be able to think clear. We'll be able to fight better when we're at peace. We'll be able to make better decisions, and we can actually, I feel like, transcend the whole entire humanity. If we learn peace, if I learn how to be peaceful, and approach a person with peace, I can bring them into my peace. We'll have a clear conscience to learn about each other's cultures.
Yes.
Instead of having an emotion fueled, oh, but I'm pissed off because your culture did this. And, no, we need to remove those emotions, and we need to really, embrace our peace, embrace the happiness that our cultures bring us with, that the things that can tie us together, like food and music and art, the things that enrich our culture, and really share those things with each other and be proud. Like, fuck yeah, I'm proud of your culture. You guys make some bomb ass tacos, and I fucking love those things,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Jalen, I thank you for your time, your mind, and your heart. You're an inspiring person. I feel like there's so much about you that we can still talk about. And I'd love to, talk again at a time where we can just talk about music, talk about movies, talk about, once we can move ahead a little bit beyond what we're going through right now. You're a multi-dimensional person, and it's, like you were saying about the emotion, sometimes we're moved to emotion because we just can't bear it anymore. It's like you tell me about your brother being pulled over and people treating him a certain way, and you too, just because of the color of your skin. And it's just infuriating when people actually are really so much more complex. I mean, I know it's obvious to us, but some people boil each other down to just what they look like, and it's enough is enough.
Enough is enough, this has to stop. The violence definitely has to stop. I know damn well it's not, again, stemming from us. I mean, if somebody has that much hate and rage in their heart that they can just harm a human life without, any kind of remorse or regret, and feel proud of that shit, that's sickening, and we want to step away from that, and we want to do a peaceful protest, and we really want to show out that, like, we're bigger than that. We're wiser than that. We're more intelligent than that, and we're greater than that, and we are not going to step down, and we're definitely not going to step down in their shoes to where we're going to take violent action. No, we don't need to do that. But we do have something to say, and we're going to express it.
Yes, I'm feeling hopeful. I just have one more question for you, Jaylyn. For now, maybe in the future we can talk. I'm happy to have made your acquaintance. You seem like somebody who would be fun to talk to about various subjects. Jaylyn, you can answer it any way you like. Who are you?
Who am I? I'm just this like funky ass vibration. Like, I'm just this funky, spunky, cool, like loving vibration. That's the only thing I can describe it. Like, if you really want to know who I am, you'll just feel it. That's who I am.